It's Meet the Biz time. Okay, we have. What was I going to say? I was going to say I love this guy. I think he's amazing. I've known him. I don't know for how many years now, and he's an actor. He's an advocate. He's a motivational speaker. He flies planes. He teaches scuba diving. Mr. John Lawson.
Hey, thank you, thank you, thank you for having me, David. This is really cool.
Oh, this is why this keeps me going, and hanging out with friends.
That's awesome. Yeah, I agree.
Um,
Um, so, how have you been?
I've been okay. I've been, I have my days. I have my
Yeah,
day. Um, Usually about once a week for about a half an hour. I get very anxious,
yeah,
and then once a month for about an hour, I get a little depressed
yeah.
or more. But then I get through it. I go through it and then move on and focus on what I need to do, and whatever that is to quote. I know this might sound schmaltzy, but make the world a better place by
Yeah,
by bringing joy into into the world. So
I agree. I kind of go through the same thing, and I have actually pretty much been in my house since March. I'm very fortunate to have a backyard and a swimming pool, so I end up going out in the backyard a lot, and I go to Costco about every 2 weeks for groceries, and I go in the early morning hours when they let the old people and the cripples in. So, I check two boxes. So they don't even check my card anymore. They go, yes, sir, just come right on in. you know. But but that's about it. I did make a quick trip back to Ohio. Um, my daughter got a big promotion with her job and went back to help her pack up, and she and her husband, and kind of get their house ready to put on the market. And felt probably safer flying than I feel in Costco, to be honest with you.
ah,
I I've been flying Southwest for 10 or 15 years. Ever since I lived back east and would fly out here to do television or film, Southwest always sort of had the best rates and the best deals and the best time when I wanted to fly. So I've been with Southwest for a long time, and they're the only airline that is still not selling center seats. So I flew from LAX to Chicago, and I had a whole row to myself. There was nobody in the row in front of me, nobody in the row behind me, and across the aisle, the two rows over there were completely empty. So, I mean, it wasn't that full of a flight, but everybody wore masks, and if they kept them down too long, the flight attendants came by, and you could see them. I had my headphones on, but you could see them, asking people to put their masks back on, and it was really a great flight. Same thing flying back from Cincinnati to LAX, and I kind of went on early morning flights and late night flights, so that probably helped. But other than that, yeah, it's just been the backyard and Costco.
well, it's nice you have a backyard. What about getting one of those services that will pick up food from Costco for you?
I've thought about it, but you know what? I need that little bit of time just to get out of the house on my own. And, I have a convertible, and I love my convertible, and it gives me a few minutes just to. I don't live that far from Costco, but it gives me a few minutes in the early morning hours. I can put the top down and let the wind blow through what hair I have left. So, it becomes quite the little zen moment. I get some old 60s and 70s classic rock playing on there with the top down and pull into Costco, put on my mask, and go get what I need and get out and drive home.
Like
So,
a meditation to get in that car, and that's one of the things that I've done over the this time too is taken a friend of mine has made a lemon meringue pie homemade.
yeah,
She lives like 40 minutes away, so my trip was to drive there, see her for 5 minutes, social distancing, and then I drive back, and just that drive is like Ah,
Yeah.
get out of
Well,
there.
it was interesting. I did make a trip over to Burbank in the very early, maybe March or April.
Right.
A really good friend of mine lives in Burbank, and you probably know her, Patricia Darbo.
Yes.
And I called Patricia and said, "Hey, I'm going to Costco. Do you want anything?" And she goes, "Oh my gosh, we haven't been out. Roth and I are home, and if you would, if you would stop and get me a couple things." So I did, and I, shopped for her and Roth, and was driving it over to her house to Burbank, and I live up in Northridge. So I got on the 118 to get over on the 5, and it was so wild. I guess it'd been a month or 6 weeks that, or more, that I had not been on the interstate. I'd driven on surface roads close to my house, just going to Costco in Northridge and Woodland Hills or wherever. And I had this really, and I've been driving for a long time, moment of anxiety of going, oh my gosh, I'm on the interstate. Everybody's going 80 miles an hour. And it took, I regained my composure, and I drive fast. I drive like everybody else in LA. I drive like a bat out of hell. And, but there was that moment that I had not been on an interstate for so long that I was almost to the point that I forgot how to drive on an interstate. And that was such a wild awakening for me. I'm going, okay, I got to get out more.
Oh my God. Right.
So, but yeah, other than that, it's just been, right around town. Maybe a quick run to Rouse and to Costco, and that's it.
Now, though, when you're in the house for most of the time, you're creating. You're doing stuff.
It's been crazy. Back in March, a friend of mine, he worked on that TV show Z Nation that went 5 seasons on Sci-Fi Channel, and he goes, I was wondering if I want to do a talk show about Z Nation, and we'll interview cast and crew, and could you help me? Would you produce it? And I said, sure. So Zoom was new to everybody, February, March. I went on Zoom and took a lot of training classes and figured out how we could use their webinar platform and produce on Zoom. So that took off like crazy. Z Nation is now on Netflix. And we've interviewed everybody from the showrunners, the producers, the executive producers, the cast, all of the cast. We have the lead actress coming up next Friday, and Kalita Smith. And we have huge people zooming in and asking questions from all over the world now that it's on Netflix. Anywhere Netflix plays, we've had people from Brazil, we've had people from England, Scotland, France, you name it. And it's just taken off, and it's been really wild. And so I've been producing a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And
Now, what do you like more? Do you like prefer producing or acting or directing? What?
I enjoy directing probably the most. I love taking just some words on a page and helping people bring it to life, bringing the characters and making it, what the writer intended and what their motivation was at the time. But I also do enjoy producing. I enjoy bringing all the elements together and having this great final product. And I can't say a lot about it right now, but I've been asked to produce on a new TV pilot that hopefully starts shooting next year, and actually a couple of different ones. But and I can't really say a lot about them right now. But yeah, it's just opened up a lot of doors, and I I just finished as a post producer on a film. It had been kind of sitting for about a year, and a guy called me through a contact and said, "Hey, can you post produce on this and finish it up?" And so I did, and we did sound and sound effects and color and all the things to finish up the film. And then he goes, "Don't you produce on Zoom?" He goes, "Can we do like a virtual premiere?" And so the other night I produced and directed a virtual premiere for cast and crew mostly, and some friends.
Right.
There were a couple of hundred people there, and some industry people. And this is more like it's a short film. It's a 30-minute short film, but it's almost more like a pilot for a TV show
Okay.
called The Pragmatist.
Oh,
And it's an action adventure kind of thing. And um, but we had people zooming in and all the cast, and so it was really cool. It went very, very well, and you'll be hearing something about that, I'm sure, before too much longer. They're getting ready to shop it around to networks for a television series.
this is great. I think I saw it. It's on IMDb, listed on IMDb.
Probably so, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sure it's listed on IMDb, but I ended up doing some final edit, and I actually did all of the color. It was just a raw film, just raw data, and so I acted as the colorist as well, and colored the whole film. And now there were a couple of people on that saw I did the color, and now they've contacted me and asked me, will I color the film for them? That they liked, the way I did it and the way it looked and all this kind of stuff. So the color correction and all of that's a whole new avenue for me that I'm really enjoying.
So you're just building on. I mean, when did you start like saying, "Oh, I'm going to produce, I'm going to direct"? Was it connected with the Disability Film Challenge, or was it before then?
It was way before then, actually. I produced and directed my first film on film when I was about 14 years old. You know, and a neighbor did some local stuff years ago when I was a kid, and he taught me how to splice. We actually had to cut the film, the old saying of ending up on the cutting room floor. And to make scenes put together, we had to cut the film and then glue it back together to make one continuous film. So I think I was shooting on Super 8, and of course, no sound. I didn't have any sound or anything like that. But we had a big premiere at my house, and my mom and dad set up the projector for me, and they were all excited until one of my splices stuck in the film projector and caught on fire.
Oh no!
And so, yeah, so my dad was a little pissed, but so yeah, I've done producing and directing since a teenager, and I was a voice and piano major in college and drama, and still made films back then, and
Now, did you
um,
start making films before you started acting, or did it all go together?
it just all came together. Uh, you know, I I I always liked acting, and I still do. Of course, now it's fewer and far between with COVID and everything that's going on. I have had a couple of auditions recently for a car commercial and a couple of different commercials, voiceover, and one role in a short film or a film feature or something. But I've always enjoyed the producing part of it as well. And after I lost my hands over 30 years ago and became more involved in the disability community, I, at the time, I can remember being in the hospital now thinking, well, this is great. An actor with no hands that's trained and, has, improv and training and set experience. There'll be tons of work for me. And unfortunately, 70 years later, here we are 30 years later, and it's still not true. So I can remember many years ago watching the TV show China Beach
Yeah.
and with Dana Delaney. And Harold Russell, who was a
Right.
double amputee, did the best years of our lives. And he played her grandfather in an episode. And he was at Thanksgiving or whatever and holding a little styrofoam cup. And he was grabbing the top of the cup by the lip with his hook, just like I do to drink. And I'm going, that guy's really an amputee. He's an actor. And so after the episode, I was actually traveling back from LA. I'd done something, this was years ago. And I was in an airport in Atlanta and watching a TV, and Entertainment Tonight was on, I believe it was, and they interviewed him. and he talked about his role in the best years of our lives and all that. And so I went home and went to a video rental place, what they used to be, got the VHS tape and popped it in, and watched the movie and had no idea that it existed or who he was. So my wife at the time, I told her, I go, I need to talk to him. She goes, well, let's call him. And in the interview with Entertainment Tonight, he said he lived in Hyannisport, Mass. So back then, you could dial the area code, and I mean dial, on a rotary phone. Yeah. And so I dialed the area code, and you dial 555-1212, and you get information for that area. So I asked for the number of Mr. Harold Russell, and he was listed. And so I got the number, and we were eating dinner, and I told my wife, I go, I can't call him. He's a movie star. I mean, he won't talk to me. She goes, well, just dial the number. If he goes, don't bother me, we don't call anymore. So after dinner, picked up the phone, dialed the number, and he answered the phone. He goes, hello. I go, Mr. Russell? He goes, yes. I go, Mr. Harold Russell? He goes, yes. I go, the movie star! Just like that. And, I've never been, impressed by people before, because I've been in the industry for so long and met so many wonderful people and friends. But he just laughed like crazy, this big old belly laugh. And I quickly gave him my spiel that I was a recent double amputee, had just lost both hands, and I'd always been an actor, and I was so excited to get started back and try to do some more acting. And over the years, we became really good friends and talked a lot, and there was actually going to be a remake of The Best Years of Our Lives. And Harold recommended me for the role, and I did some screen testing and all this kind of stuff, and the director and producers were all, wanted me for it, but then I guess funding fell through or something, I don't know, financing, and so it never got made. But it was going to be sort of updated to the Vietnam era, and I was going to be double amputee from Vietnam, but almost the same story, but it was sort of an updated remake of The Best Years of Our Lives. So
How cool is
yeah,
that?
and then Harold and I became good friends. We talked on the phone all the time, and his wife got sick, and my wife got sick, and we, talked a lot before he passed away.
Wow. What a story. What one of those life stories that are just with you.
Yeah, you just never know. And like I said, when I said the movie star, he just laughed. He goes, I don't know about that. He
Ah,
actually worked as the president. He worked for like four administrations as the president's advisor on hiring the handicapped
okay.
from like the late 1940s or 50s on up until in the late 60s or 70s, I think. But he worked for all the different administrations through those years. So, but he was a really cool guy. Definitely a Navy guy with a sailor vocabulary.
Ah,
We'll put it that way.
oh my gosh. I was researching you, and it's so fun doing the Meet the Bizes because, of course, I know some of your work. I mean, one of my favorite movies of yours is the is that wonderful movie GN Dragon.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely adored, and I know you've done so many ones, Whitney's Wedding, and I love that one too. But something about GN the Dragon, just I can watch that over and over, and it's just so uplifting and so.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Another interesting story is that I had originally cast a little girl to be in that, and about 2 weeks or 3 weeks before we were supposed to start shooting, maybe a little further out, a month or so, her parents emailed me and said, we totally forgot that we're going back east for a wedding, and so she won't be here. So I didn't have anybody for my lead role. I'd already talked to Parvish
How close was it to the shoot?
about a month out, maybe somewhere along in there. And they go, we're so sorry. And I had located, she was with Gail. And anyway, so Gail goes, well, I don't have anybody else that I can think of, that was smaller, younger. I wanted a younger girl wheelchair user. So I went to the Abilities Expo at the LA Convention Center because my friend Toby was, working with one of the van companies or something, whatever. So my friend Adam, my DP, and I just went to go support him and the other people that were there. And as we're leaving, this little girl, Gia, of course I didn't know her at the time, comes rolling by almost over my toe, headed out the door, like by herself. And I'm going, where are her parents? This little kid's going out the door of the convention, out of the off the floor. And I'm looking around, and she was so cute. And I went, hey, how are you? And she goes, hi, how are you? And just kept right on rolling by, and was so adorable. And I turned to Adam and I said, that's the kid I want in my movie. And I'm going, where are her parents? And finally I saw her dad. He was sort of, looking at his phone, but he was watching her, but giving her some space, and he was keeping an eye. And I go, I need to go talk. That must be her dad. And Adam goes, you can't go talk to him and tell him you want to put his daughter in a movie. I go, sure I can. So I walked up, explained who I was, and told him I was doing the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge. And I saw his daughter, and she would be perfect for this role, for this film that I was planning. And he goes, well, his mom's an actress. She would love it. Go talk to her. So he introduced me to his wife, and we became good friends, family friends. And that's how I met Gia. And at the time she did the film, she was not 4 years old. I think she was only 3.5, almost 4. It was like 4 or 5 months before her 4th birthday.
Yeah.
And Pavish Chenna is a good friend, and I'd asked him to be in the film. And so anyway, it all came about and all came together. And what was interesting, because of the previous film I had CNN did a story, and Diana Jordan, myself, went on CNN, and Nick Novicki, and did some interviews and stuff. So CNN asked, could they send a reporter to follow me and my film crew making the film that year with Gia and Dragon? So the long story short, Adam was supposed to work on another film, and it didn't come about. He goes, do you want some help? And I go, sure. Well, my original DP that was working, so I had camera A and camera B units, plus I had the CNN camera crew there, plus Easter Seals had their videographer there
I
to
love it.
film me with CNN filming us. So knowing that CNN was going to be there and run this and air it on CNN, I not only wanted to show disability in front of the camera with Gia and everyone else, but disability behind the camera, besides myself being a director with a disability.
Right.
So I called up Kaylee Versfeld, who's been in a couple of my films, and Shell and her mom. And I said, I was wondering if Kaylee would like to work behind the camera for me on this film, because she'd been in the film previous. And told her why. I said, I would like for her to work the slate, to slate, because I know that's an iconic picture that CNN will show,
Yeah.
as we're getting ready to start. And she goes, yeah, I think that'd be great. And Kaylee loved it, and she did a great job. And so she's worked on a couple of other films in front of and behind the camera for me. So we had quite the crew with disability as well, because I wanted CNN's piece to see that disability not only can be in front of the camera, but behind the camera as well. So that was a really good shoot. Of course, we shot it all in one day, and edited, and it's been around the world in, I don't know, 50, 60 different festivals all around the world. So
Wow.
it's a really cool film.
It's interesting too. It's such a lesson to directors, and anybody in the arts of how to really look at the whole what's going on. Okay, there you have the CNN cameras, you have these cameras, the Easter seals. This is what we got to do, and you know exactly. So you, in a way, directed the whole thing
Yeah,
by having her do Slate, and so
right.
that was just
Because I knew that'd be the iconic shot. And sure enough, they showed some scenes as we were shooting with the camera guy, me behind the camera and stuff. But the iconic shot was Kaylee in front slating.
wow.
And so, yeah, it was quite the set that we had with all these different camera crews going at the same time. And I had from being in the industry for so long, I've had I think Jason Brown, who is an Ohio friend, but is a big time first AD. I mean, you look him up, and he's worked on probably 100 different television shows as a first AD. You know, running on the show. Drunk History was one of the last ones he worked on,
Oh my God.
and he's been the first AD on that, I think, since the beginning. And we're good friends, and I'd ask him, "Hey, will you come be my first AD and run set? Because this is all going to be going on." And just a wonderful guy who kept us right on what we needed done. So we got all the shots that we needed and stayed true to the script and got all of our turnarounds. So I was very lucky to have somebody with a lot of experience who was one of the most wonderful humans on set. And actually, Jason worked on the pilot of Speechless. And he called me because he knows of my disability advocacy and said, "John, well, I'm working on this pilot. You've got to be here. I've got to get you on set." And so anyway, he talked to the second AD. So I went and worked background on Speechless for their pilot, which I actually didn't get in the shot. The way they ended up cutting it was all tight. But it was where he was going to meet his first person that was going to be his vocal. But anyway, it was so cool. They set me up just specifically to be in the shot, but then they ended up using a closer shot. But so it was kind of cool. I got to meet, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
I got to meet, how do I turn this thing off? I thought I did.
I usually throw mine against the wall.
Yeah, that's what I should have done. I thought I had it off. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Mine does that too. I did it with Dee Wallace, and she was like, "Rule number one." Dee.
Yeah. You forgot to tell me. Make sure you turn off all cell phones and any device that makes a noise. Anyway, so there, I got to meet Micah Fowler. And a couple of years later, a few years later, we were doing the next Disability Film Challenge, and he and I were at an event, and he came up to me. He goes, "Are you doing a film this year?" And I go, "Yeah, yeah." He goes, "Can I be in it?" I said, "Sure, I'll take a lead actor with an ABC hit TV show to be in my Disability Film Challenge." And so Micah came in, and of course, Connor Haney did a great script, and we did this sci-fi, where his wheelchair could make him go back in time, and my good friend Patricia Darbo. That cast came together the same way. Patricia called me and she goes, "Are you doing a film this year? Can I be in it?" I go, "Sure, I'll take a multiple Emmy-winning actress to be in my little short film." So we cast Patricia, and it turned out to be one of the greatest little comedy films that I've done in a long time.
Oh, yeah, it was, and with Miss Brewer in it.
Oh yeah, and of course I had to bring Jamie. Jamie's did my first film years ago, Whitney's Wedding, and that film went around the world. I think it was in close to 100 film festivals. It won Best International Film in Sydney, Australia, and we got to go to Australia.
I have a question about getting it out there because, for example, a lot of the students of Performing Arts Studio West and Meet the Biz have submitted films, and this was the first year that I actually produced a film for the Disability Film Challenge.
Right.
Honey Bunny.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So now we have this film.
Which I watched a couple of times. I just want you to know. It was, of course, because of you. Nothing to do with the actors that were in there that I happen to know very well.
Of course, yeah, right. But right, and and everybody else involved. Here's the thing. So you got a film, you've got a short film. How did you get that to 100 festivals?
It's um, it's expensive. Um,
So
when
you
I
put
first
it out
started
there.
with, yeah, when I to submit,
Yeah.
when I first started with Whitney's Wedding, I started with the festivals that were free or under $10, and that um, either had something about disability or love or something that was close to the theme of what our film was about. And then that produced, 6, 8 little festivals, and we submitted them all. So then I went up a little higher and higher, dollar range.
Yeah.
But probably for Whitney's Wedding, I probably spent $2,000, if not more, just in film submissions.
Yeah.
And you get those letters where, hey, thanks for submitting to our film, but we regret to inform you that we were unable. It was a great film and we really liked it, you know, but we keep your $50. So then with my next films, I got um, a little more specialized in what I was submitting to.
Yeah.
And this last year, we took second date with Micah to the Cambria Film Festival just up the road. It's a beautiful festival, and we won some awards there as well. So, um, uh, my first film for Disability Film Challenge was 7 or 8 years ago
Yeah.
that I shot in Ohio.
What a,
I shot it back in Ohio, and I was in the film. Friend of mine wrote it,
now, were you
and
now? When did you move to LA?
well, I've lived here part time, half the year or whatever for 10 or 12 years. And then when my daughter graduated high school, I would come out and spend the winter. I would winter in Hollywood and summer in Ohio, mainly because I still had a house there. And then the housing market crashed, and so I stuck around for a while, traveling back and forth, and would live out here from pilot season to, the March or April, and then go back to Ohio. And then about 5 or 6 years ago now, maybe, I sold my house back there and moved out here full time. So I've been out full time for 6 or 7 years, 5, 6, 7 years.
And in that time, you've been in what? Westworld, American Horror
Yeah,
Story,
yeah.
Shooter, Law and Order Special Victims Unit as an actor.
Yes. I did. I have done one episode of Westworld in every season, and I it started 3 or 4 years ago.
Is it same character, different characters?
Different characters. Always a double amputee, and I can't remember if it was Central Casting or one of the background casting companies knew me or looked me up. I don't know how they found me, but said, "Would you work background on Westworld?" I go, "What's Westworld?" This was quite a long time ago. And so I kind of tried to look it up and found out. I said, "Oh, yeah, I remember the film and all that kind of stuff." It was kind of cool. And so I went on and they paid me very, very well. I said, "Look, I'm not going to work for background." But so anyway, but I got paid very well and ended up doing a couple of days in the very first season. Um, I played a Confederate soldier or something that got blown up. I don't remember, but I was in with the main actors in a scene, and I thought that was fun. And then like 2 years later, they called me back and said, "Hey, the director that directed the first one would like you in this new season. Can you come in?" So I go, "Sure." So I went back in and worked a couple of days again, background. I don't even remember what I played that time. Uh, and then this last season, again, same people called me back again and going, "Hey, they want you." And it was the exact same director again. He recognized me. I guess because I didn't have arms. But he goes, "Oh my God, I'm so glad to see you back." I don't think he remembered my name, but I think is the last season playing now, their third season or whatever.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Well, I played. I guess I can say I played a knight, like it was Knights of the Round Table kind of thing. So I played a knight, and the director afterwards, and I've forgotten his name, came up to me afterwards and he goes, "I am so sorry." He goes, "We had this big scene planned for me to be a homage to the um, uh, the knight that gets nailed to the door and his arms fell off and it's going to be, oh, this is going to be a bad day or something like that." What's the show?
Oh, the comedy.
Yeah, I've seen it on Broadway and I've seen the film and I can't remember it right now, but I was going to be the Black Knight.
Is that
And
from like Every Sperm Is Sacred? The
yeah, and he's on the
Monty
door of the
Python.
Monty Python. And so but the wardrobe people forgot to bring the costume. They had this whole costume for me and everything. So I just played one of the robots that was missing arms in one of the rooms or whatever. So, but it was kind of cool. I've done one episode of Westworld for 3 years, all three seasons.
Well, we got to find out what he's doing next, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I hope they call, because the thing about it is it has to be one of the most expensive shows to produce that HBO produces or whoever it's on, because we would go 12, we'd be on set and my scene would get ready to come up and they go, "Okay, let's break for lunch." So then they'd go back and then we'd work overtime. And oh, I played a soldier one time when they blew up the fort or something. That was the other one. And I was just laying there on a cot and ended up, getting like 16, 18-hour day.
We're laying there.
And, yeah, just for laying there at almost triple scale. So, it was amazing. So it's been very good to me and helped pay the rent. So I'm waiting for season 4 of Westworld, and hopefully one day I get a speaking role, and then I can actually get some residuals.
Now I have to ask about. I was saying one of my favorite shows is American Horror Story, except right now we're living it, so I don't know.
Right? Yeah.
But the show, the actual show, you were on that. How was working with Ryan Murphy and that magic?
It was pretty cool. Um, I can't remember how I got the audition, to be honest with you, but they wanted a double amputee.
Hmm.
And there's not that many around in Hollywood, for sure. And I auditioned. I sent in a tape, I think, because I was back in Ohio. I was back in Cincinnati. And they wanted me to come in for a callback in New Orleans. And I went, okay, what the heck? I drove to New Orleans from Cincinnati and did the callback. And the casting director goes, "Ryan wants you. I'm glad you came in, whatever. Are you available such and such a dates?" And they hired me right then. I mean, it was almost not a callback. It was just like, come in, meet Ryan. And, he just kind of came in. I did my thing. And then he left because they were shooting. And so she goes, "He wants you. Can you stick around for a little bit and sign the paper?" And I'm going, "Sure." I was just going down Bourbon Street. So I spent 2 or 3 days in New Orleans just as a vacation, got the job, drove back to Cincinnati, and they were shooting. It got delayed, and it was like right before Thanksgiving
Yeah.
when they were shooting. And I had 2 scenes. And so they brought me down and put me up in the hotel and all that. And the day before Thanksgiving, or 2 days, whatever it was, we were shooting my scene, and it was kind of going late and all this kind of stuff. It was interiors with Jessica Lange and Naomi Grossman and all the interior scenes that we shot there on set in New Orleans. And I go, well, they'll never bring me back for this little second scene. And it was when Pepper got married. It was during the marriage scene. So I went back and I'm going, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. And a week or two later after Thanksgiving, I call, Ryan wants you back on set. Can you be here? And I go, yeah, I'll free up my schedule. So I went back to New Orleans and I actually drove back again. They said, we'll fly you down. They were going to fly me down. I go, do you mind if I drive? Because a friend of mine went with me and we spent 3 or 4 days in New Orleans having a great time.
How
You
long did
know,
you drive?
it was about 11 hours.
Okay.
So I had my Prius at the time. So, we drove back down and Gabby, my good friend, was on set and sort of became my on-set PA. Nobody would argue with me. I'm going, she holds my arms, So, but yeah, we had a great time, and of course, I got to meet all the cast and got to be a lot of good friends with them, and just I've made some friends just from those two occasions in American Horror Story that are still friends. And of course, I knew Jamie. Jamie wasn't on set when I was there. I don't think, but I met Erica and Matt and just Naomi, and we just all got to be really good friends. It was kind of
I
cool.
just love hearing your stories of how you connect to people
Yeah,
and how you just, whether producing, acting, directing. Um, what is your God, I have a list of stuff for you that I could talk to you for hours. We could like do a whole, one episode a week with you, just with you. My gosh. One thing that I have to bring up is I saw that you do musicals. And it looks like you've done every musical. You've done South Pacific, you've done Oliver. What, if you had to say, you're a singer. So
yeah.
what is your favorite musical and why?
Well, it's interesting. A musical I'd always wanted to do was Footloose. And I got a chance to do it with the Palm Theater in Palm Springs about 4 or 5 years ago. And it was really great. And I got to play the preacher, you know. And I used my cosmetic hands. They said I didn't have to. I go, well, I don't want people to focus on a preacher standing with hooks. And I've done tons of musicals, and that's where my strong lies. But that was probably my favorite because the preacher, out of all the characters in Footloose, is the only character that changes. From beginning to end, he's the only one that has a character arc that changes. Everybody else is the same. They're all footloose and dancing and doing everything. And the preacher is the only one, the dad, is the only one that really changes. So it gave a great character arc, and I'd been wanting to do it since college and never had a chance. And probably next would be Oliver, and I got to play Fagin.
Yes.
And that was soon after I'd lost my hands, and so it was one of my first times back on stage playing a character, and I used my fake hands. So.
Now, talking about that as well, I was looking at your resume as well, which I'm used to whenever I do casting, boom, boom, boom.
Uh,
For your resume at the end of what you do, number one, I love hand-to-hand stage combat.
yeah.
And then you do over 101 amputee jokes.
Yes.
I love that. And then listen to this, what you do. If I wish I could do, fishing, ice skating, you're a pilot, you fly, scuba diving, you train, you teach that snorkeling, snow skiing, ballroom dancing. Think about all these things that, this is what gets you in the door too. Harmonica, you play the harmonica.
Yeah.
I could keep going, and the voices you do, it's just incredible.
Well, thank you. You really do, in the industry, have to have a wide range. And when you are a person with a disability, you have to even have a wider range. and crossing all all spectrums. And one of the things on set that a lot of people you'll hear thrown around a lot of time is, we have a problem. Well, think outside the box. And you hear that either in business or in film industry. And people with disabilities in daily life think of outside the box every day. I look at picking up a pencil and I have to think, okay, how do I have to position my hook so I can pick up the pencil or the pen to have it ready so I can write something down? Or whatever it's going to be. I'm at a buffet, okay, on set, how I'm used to, you don't have buffets anymore, but, how am I going to hold this flimsy paper plate so I can get food and eat and be ready to go back on set and not embarrass myself in front of everybody? So you have to think outside the box all the time. So as an advocate for people with disabilities in front of and behind the camera, that's what I preach, is that you can hire somebody that thinks out of the set just in daily life. And when it comes to things on set that need an instant solution or a quick solution, because you're always time is money, a person with a disability is going to probably have the best idea that you can come up with. So, it even comes down to accessibility. There's a famous cartoon, it's been around a lot, where there is a man shoveling snow, and he's shoveling snow off the steps. And there's a guy, a wheelchair user there, and there's a ramp right next to it that's covered in snow. And the caption is, if you clear the ramp, we all can use it. If you just clear the steps, I can't. Or something to that effect. And that's so true. Accessibility issues that might make a film set accessible for people with disabilities, whether it be a ramp or whatever, it also makes it easier for people that have two good legs. So when you think about accessibility in those terms, it's not something special that you have to do for an actor or a crew person with a disability. So it's something that can make it beneficial and easier for everybody.
One more question. What to you is your biggest accomplishment in life?
Wow. I'd have to say my biggest accomplishment in life is raising two great kids. This recent stuff on Facebook, Daughter Day, Son Day. And my son has two children, and he works from home. He's a computer nerd and works from home in programming and works for the power industry, Duke Power, or back in Cincinnati, Duke Energy. But he still, he has a 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old little daughter. And, he and his wife take turns, but, he gets up in the morning and braids her hair and gets her ready for school. And now they have a son, Lucas, who's, Lucas is almost a year or just over a year old. No, he's older than that. He's almost 2. I guess I better get my ages right. But, that's the best in the world. And recently, seeing things that I taught my children when I was back there recently, that my son is teaching his kids and passing on to them. And then my daughter, when she was 2 years old, my wife was diagnosed with terminal breast cancer, and then she passed away in 2001 when my daughter was 9 years old. So I was a single parent, and so I get texts from my daughter when she was working on her house and they were restaining the floors. She goes, "Dad, this stain says I've got to put it on, let it wait 10 minutes, and then wipe it off. Should I do it with a towel?" And I'm going, "You're staining a floor," and it was a dark stain. I said, "Just use a roller." And she was going to brush it on with a little 3-inch brush. I said, "Just use a roller, roll it on." and then let it dry, let it soak in. And she goes, I never thought about that. And then 3 days later, I get a text from her and she's packing stuff up and she goes, I'm trying to figure out what I should take and move to Florida and what I should keep. Should I keep these old bridesmaids' dresses or should I pack those as well? So, it's so cool to have such a close relationship with my daughter that asks me fashion questions, asks me home repair questions. But then with my son raising his children, and he's the same way. He was 7 years old when I lost my hands. So he became my hands almost his whole life. So I've always liked to do home repair and woodworking. So the woodworking and the home repair and stuff he learned as a child, he now does in his homes. And he has 3 or 4 rental homes and they work on them and, do that kind of stuff. So that to me is my greatest accomplishment and nothing in the world will ever top that. And to know that they were raised accepting of everybody. My kids have being raised in the industry around a lot of different people of all races and all abilities and all sexual orientations, they accept everybody. And that is probably the greatest accomplishment that I made some great humans.
Sounds like
So that to me, nothing on an IMDb or nothing on a resume can ever compete with that. Damn you, David.
it.